discussion that we're hosting, moderated by Reverend Wanda Johnson, with families of the celebrants who we are honoring as part of the 1-800 Happy Birthday exhibition that opened yesterday. Last night we had a big opening reception. Thank you very much to everyone who joined us last night, and thank you for being here today. My name is I am a curator here at WORTHLESS Studios, and I'm going to hand over to Mohammad Gorjestani, who is the artist behind the project, who will introduce Reverend Wanda Johnson, who will then introduce the panelists. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Claudia. Thanks, everybody, for being here. It's been a very special weekend. Really grateful for all the families making it out. You know, for the themes of this project, these things have been happening as long as America's been existing. The way white supremacy has its tentacles over the non-white communities of our country. But for my generation, it was the murder of Oscar Grant by BART police that mobilized us and became a kind of this moment in time that, you know, changed the course of the way we moved. And over the years, I've gotten to know Reverend Wanda Johnson, and this project kind of started with me filming one of Oscar's birthday parties after he had passed, and that kind of planted the seed for everything, and just kind of observing how Wanda just was a leader in her community, all the things she's done to make sure the legacy of her son continues, and then watching the way she works around the country with other mothers and being not just a community leader in Oakland, but a community leader across the country. So it's a real honor for me to have her and all the other mothers and family members here, and the siblings, fathers, and everyone else, and grandmothers. So with that, I just want to pass it off to Reverend Wanda Johnson.
I want to take the time to thank Mohammad and Worthless Studios. When Mohammad got the vision, I'm so glad that when he shared it, those who heard it ran with it and brought it into fruition. And I tell you, this is a space of healing, a space of peace, a space where we could come together and share things about our loved ones that others may not have known, to bring our loved ones alive, make them personal to each and every one of us. And so what I'll be doing today is, again, I'm the mother of Oscar Grant, who was killed January 1st, 2009 at the Fruitvale BART station in Oakland, California. The officer who killed my son was charged with involuntary manslaughter. He would have a gun enhancement charge, but the judge decided to throw the gun enhancement charge out and only give the officer 11 months in a county jail. And so I want you to think about that. I said earlier in the first panel session, I want you to think about the history of policing. I want you to even look back and think about the history in the 1800s and even in the 1900s and even today. And when you look at policing, one of the things that we learn from the Malcolm X grassroots study is that it says that every 28 hours, and it's even less than that, an African American or a brown young man is killed at the hands of police or vigilantes. And so when you think about that every hour or every less than 28 hours, one is killed by police, there's something wrong with our system of policing. We know from studying other countries that there are officers in other countries who don't even carry guns. But yet guns are so freely used in America. And so I want these families to share their loved ones with us. I'll be asking a series of questions to the families, and I want you in the audience to not leave this place the same, but leave this place propelled, leave this place convicted to make a difference. Tenicka Mallory wrote a book, and she talked about being an accomplished or a vigilante. And so we need some accomplishers and we need some vigilantes. We need someone who will stand up in front of us and declare what is being done is wrong. And we need those to walk aside of us and help us to continue to build this movement till we make a change in our judicial system and our policing system. And I want to recognize George Floyd's brother. Bless you for being here today. We honor you as well. So on the panel, I am going to have the panelists introduce themselves and to introduce their loved one to us and to tell us in 2 to 3 minutes what happened to their loved one. Valerie, if you will start for us.
Why y'all have me sit here? See, I was trying to sit down there on the end because I didn't want to go first. But my name is Valerie Castile. I am Philando Castile's mother. Philando was crucified July the 6th, 2016, 10 days before his 33rd birthday. He was a great young man, supervisor for a school cafeteria. He knew all the children by name, their allergies, and he would sometimes pay for their lunch when they didn't have the money for their lunches. It's ridiculous what is happening in this country, but Philando, he was a motivator, a mentor, a role model. He was even a healer. He was this quiet guy that hurt people navigated towards him. He was just this energy that was so calming and relaxing because that's who he was. I just loved him and we miss him, and I'm not gonna take up the 3 minutes, so I'm gonna pass it along. But thank you guys for coming.
Hi, my name is Shante Needham. Sandra Bland is my sister. Sandy had driven, I think she said, 16 hours to Texas for a job that she really wanted, which was to help the incoming students with being acclimated to the college life. July 10th, 2015, she was stopped by Brian and Cynthia for what he said was a failure to signal a lane change. A lot of things transpired during those few hours. She ended up going to jail where they claim on July 13th she had hung herself. But we know what really happened. And it's just really sad because 7 other women had died in prison that same month too. And they just do not respect Black and brown women. And it's really a travesty.
My name is Lorianne Carter. I am the aunt of Tony Robinson. A lot of people thought that he was my sibling and I's little brother because he was so close in age to us. There's only about a 4-year difference between him and my little brother. He was executed March 6, 2015, by a Madison police officer who had killed somebody else not but 2 years prior to that. And he was shot 7 times. I'm gonna let my mom finish.
Hi, my name's Sharon Irwin. I'm Tony Robinson's grandmother. I am a disabled veteran. It sounds crazy. I stayed home and gardened. I hung out with my grandkids. But when Terrell was killed, it put me in the streets, pointing a finger, saying, you cannot lie to justify. You cannot do that. In the process of protesting, we also went into the city-county buildings. And we got an ORI committee to look at. I have to wait. We made changes. But those changes came back because I stood up, because my daughter stood up, because a lot of people said this isn't right. So we fight. We fight to be heard, not me, him. He has a right to be heard in the courts. And they take that away from us without even thinking about it. Because we don't have the value. But we do. We do.
Thank you.
My name is Ri-Quanda Pollard. I am the cousin of Fred Cox. Although he was my baby, I'm gonna let his mom tell you guys about him a little bit more.
I am Tenicka Shannon, Fred Cox's mother. We are from High Point, North Carolina. Fred was murdered while attending a funeral on November 8th, 2020. I always tell people I remember seeing my son foot holding the door open where a officer ran behind him as he saved a 12-year-old boy and his mom from the gunshots. My baby protected them and made sure they were safe as he took the bullets in the back. He left me behind two of the greatest gifts ever. Fred was 18 when he was murdered. However, Fred had two beautiful kids, Zayden Cox and Camellia Commander. They are my reason. And again, we're from High Point, North Carolina. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lauren Lynch. I am Donovon Lynch's little sister. My brother was shot and killed by Solomon Simmons, who is a part of the Virginia Beach Police Department on March 26, 2021. And I'm gonna let my father finish.
Good afternoon. My name is Wayne Lynch, and Donovan was my only son. And Lauren is my only daughter as well. As you can see, I'm the only man represented here today. And I think that is the major problem that we have in our families right now because of the lack of a father figure or fathers in the home. I commend the young men here today who are raising boys that are not their biological sons. I just want to give you a round of applause. That is one phenomenon that we need to correct before we can correct a lot of other things in our communities. But as far as the police department in Virginia Beach, my son was out with a friend of his, a warm summer night, after the pandemic. The Virginia Beach Ocean Front is kind of the hangout spot. But he wasn't hanging out. He was in the establishment, a restaurant. And when he came out, there was a chaos going on. There was a shootout among two rival groups, which caused the whole incident that night. There were 8 people shot by them and 2 shot by the police. Those 2 were killed. My son was one of those, and another young lady, Shayla Harris. That case is not being investigated. My case is currently in civil court, and we're seeking $50 million from the city of Virginia Beach and $325,000 from the officer himself. We want justice for Donovan.
So there's so much for us to unpack in what we've heard. We understand that Shante's sister was in jail when she died or was found dead, hung by the police. We understand that our other sister, her son, was protecting 2 other people and guarded them and ended up losing his life. And Philando, a traffic stop, had been working at the school for years. Over 400 students there, ensuring that the students who didn't have lunch money got lunch money, but yet he lost his life. We look at the other young man who was killed, and there are some things that we could take away from this. When we look at our policing system, we learn that the police often at times, instead of de-escalating the situation and taking the time to get to know those who are in their patrol duty area, we find that they jump sometimes to a conclusion of they fear their life because of our young men. And so I wanted the families to talk about any laws that they're working on trying to change or getting implemented, so we, the audience, can support them and help them in their journey of changing laws. Because we have to understand that we have to work to change our systems that are in control in order to allow equal rights to be for all people. In California, and I'll start really quick, in California there is a law, AB 1506, that deals with the district attorney. At one time we had the district attorney who would charge the police and make a decision if they're going to charge the police. But we know that when the district attorney and the police work, they work together to convict the citizens. So we know that there is often a conflict of interest in that. And so the AG, Attorney General now, is the one who will have to look at the cases of police shootings and make a determination if the police officer is going to be charged. And so we want to find out from the other families what laws they're working on or what they're working on in their community that we can help them with. Valerie, you want to start off with the conversation?
Me again. Okay, I'll just say this briefly. We're talking about Minnesota. We're talking about the state of Minnesota. So it's always a fight to do anything to get any kind of justice in the state of Minnesota. It just so happened that a few officers that held positions in, we want to say, the Police Federation, the Post Board, and things like that, they're no longer in office. But I was grateful and so happy I was able to get a little piece put in the driver's manual about gun ownership, what to expect from the police and what the police should expect from you. I was able to get that. But when it comes to the laws and policies, they don't want to change that at all. We have submitted laws for excessive force, deadly force. We have put forward laws for the pretext stops. You know, and it was funny because the prosecuting attorney, he got on TV and he said, you know what, we gonna stop the pretext stops. That means stopping someone for the broken tail light, for something hanging from the mirror or cracked windshield. The fishing expedition is what we call that. So we were trying to get that into play, but he said, we're gonna ask the departments not to stop people on the pretext stops. You understand what I'm saying? They don't want to change anything. We're fighting tooth and nails for everything. What they did put forward was the no chokehold, the no knock warrants, which they did anyway because Amir Locke was killed with the no knock warrant, even though that was supposed to be implemented. But just fighting in Minnesota is a challenge. I promise you that. And I can say that the things that we did get are things that have been asked for over 50 years ago. You know, this stuff is not new. Ain't none of this new. This shit is it's old, you know what I'm saying? And they don't want to change things because there's money in black bodies. There's money in black blood. So they don't want to change anything, but we're trying so hard to get bills passed, but it's a challenge in Minnesota. But I can say after the murder of George Floyd, they did change some things, but it was stuff that we had asked for over 50 years ago. So I'll hand it over to you. That's what you want to do.
So we have the Sandra Bland Act in Texas only currently. However, the act was watered down to exclude the real necessary things that it needed to contain, which would have been the excessive force, the escalation, and it was one more other thing. When they finally approved the act, which we're talking about Texas, and that's a very difficult state as well, they wanted to focus on the mental, as if the mental is what got her there. So it was important to my mother to go along with it in that moment so that someone else's child or father or mother or whomever could possibly not end up in a situation that Sandra did. So we have that now, but we are looking to go back and put those necessary components in the Sandra Bland Act, because had they been there in the first place and they would have abided by that, Sandy would still be here today.
Let me say something for 1 second. One of the key things that Valerie said was 50 years it's been going on. So what that says to us is that it hasn't changed. And when we look at policing, again, when you look at the 1800s, from being brought over here as slaves, and you look at how we even rolled into the 1900s, where the Ku Klux Klan was in effect, and instead of having the blue suit, they would have the white suits with the hood. And not only that, but they would beat, they would billy club, they would water hose, and they would put in jail and hang, right? And so those things really hasn't changed. It may be some faces that's changed, but still families, if we look at the Ku Klux Klan, that's not too long ago. And so what that's saying to us is that the system that we currently have in place is broken.
Yes.
And in order for the system to be fixed, it's going to require a rebuilding.
Yes.
It's just like if you have a job, when you have new procedures and policies, you sit everybody around at the table and you begin to share those new policies, right? So I'm saying that it's important for us to continue to fight to ensure that we voice our opinion about the very things that need to be changed, the very laws, the very systems, the very policing acts that are being done that needs to be changed. And when we do that, we may see little steps at a time, but we're seeing those steps take place. And we cannot give up. We could have to continue to fight to ensure justice is not only served for one, but justice is served for all mankind. So the next family, go ahead.
I'm not going to tell you all what we've done in Madison because it's not enough. My mother, I'll leave that to her. And we've done a lot. But I'm a true abolitionist and a true revolutionary. And congressional Democrats, they want to make it easier to identify, prosecute police misconduct. But the truth is, we cannot reform a system that is fixed against us. The only way to diminish police violence is to reduce the contact between the public and the police. There's not a single era in United States history in which the police were not a force of violence against black or brown people, not one. In the 17 and 1800s, as you said, they caught the slaves and returned the runaway slaves. In the North, the first municipal police departments in the mid-1800s were designed to help quash labor strikes because of how terrible they were treating us as second-class citizens. The only way to fix this system is to overhaul it completely. We need a complete deconstruction of what they built. Do not underestimate what over 500 years, that's a century, right? Yeah. Half a century's worth of ingrained, 5 centuries worth of, this is institutionalized racism. 500 years that they've been building this system. There's not a rule that you can make if they don't follow them. Body cameras get switched off all the time. Oversight committees work hand in hand. I've seen it. We've done it in Madison. It does nothing. We just had a boy shot 5 times in the back in his car. Thank God he didn't die. But we have oversight committees. And we have other officers that come in and investigate the other officers. And nothing gets done. The only way you are going to diminish police violence against black and brown people is to diminish and reduce our police forces. Defund them. White people hear that and they get afraid. We don't talk about taking the money and doing nothing with it or going and giving reparations. Reallocate those funds to education. Reallocate those funds to mental wellness. Reallocate those funds into programs that are going to be designed to keep us out of trouble. We don't make decisions based off of analysis. We do them because we don't have any other choice. I'll let my mother tell you about what was done in Madison. I personally don't care. It's done nothing to prevent anything.
Madison, Wisconsin is considered one of the 10 best places to live. Oh, my fault. 5 best places to live in the United States. But that's only if you're white. And that's the only way. Black and brown people, it is the worst place for you to raise your children in. It is the worst place because your children will probably be in the system. They're put in the system because we have for-profit prisons. And when you talk about the Ku Klux Klan, it started in Wisconsin. They're still alive in Wisconsin, 30 miles from where we are. It is one of the largest racist places I know of, and it blew me. I thought we lived in a bubble in Madison. He was killed without cause by a police officer who came into his house and shot him 7 times as he was coming down the stairs, and in 18 seconds, my grandson lay dead. From the time that man walked in the door to 18 seconds later, he had 7 bullets, and he was laying on the bottom of the steps. Now, you can go online, and you can look at the last 4 shots, and they're the kill shots, and you will see You will see. We've been doing this 7 years. We are now in the courts. They call me a raging lunatic, but I raged the truth. We are now in the courts on a statute that nobody's ever heard. We made 187 changes in the police department. They didn't mean anything was wrong, but they made 187 changes based on the fact that they killed my grandson. It's taken me 7 years to get to court because of a woman who's a chocolatier who used to be a criminal lawyer. And she said she can't see me cry no more. So she helped me write a petition to get us into the courts that says, because it says 968.02 sub 3, if a DA cannot or will not prosecute, I can go to the courts. I can say, look at this, please. Look at the evidence. Find probable cause for first or second degree reckless homicide, and we are there now. We are there now. We did it because there was a community of people who did it with us. I didn't do this alone. She didn't do this alone. People showed up when they were supposed to. And there.
I also want to say quickly. The what is it, Mom?
968.02 sub 3.
She had to search for this law. And as soon as this goes through, this is going to set precedents. Families will be able to go above the DA's decision to not charge that murderer, and you will be able to petition the judge yourself and act as your own DA.
Now look, you aren't going to have the 7 lawyers that jumped up to do this because we're setting precedents. And I'm telling them while we're doing this, I love Terrell with all my heart, but it's no longer about him. It's about what comes up behind us. I want you to have it easier. I don't want you to be called a raging lunatic. I'm cool with it, but I don't want you to be. And I don't think that it's fair. So I want them to have it easier. This is a citizen statute. It's designed for us to be easier. This judge that we went before said, well, there are 8 lawyers, and then my lawyer said, yeah, but they're not going to be there for the second one.
That's why it is so important for our audience to hear today, and each one of us, because we understand that our judicial system is broken. We understand that oftentimes the police and the district attorney work hand in hand, and they're definitely not going to charge officers. We understand that officers are very seldom charged, and that the Bill of Rights that we are under, the Bill of Rights the police is under, is a total different Bill of Rights. So some of the things that we're held accountable for, they're not going to be held accountable for in the system the way that it's currently set up. And so that's why it's important for us to talk today, to talk about the implementation of different laws and things that are getting put in place in other states, so that the other states where they're not being implemented can begin to press that they be implemented in that state as well. And so, as she was talking about the history of policing, we have to really work to change the history of policing. And when our audience, as Tenicka Mallory talked about, the vigilantes and the accomplices work with us, then that's when we will begin to see even a greater change. Had it not been for the community when my son was killed, had it not been for them supporting us, praying for us, going to court with us, the officer would have never got even 11 months in the county jail. He would have never even went to jail. Had it not probably been for the community who did an outcry when all of these families lost their loved one, the police would have maybe wrapped it up and said, well, they got what they deserve, or they was resisting arrest. And if it had not been for the community seeing it, then the charge wouldn't have stuck. But when the community began to voice and say that what they saw was an injustice, that's when our laws and things will continue to change. The more of us that speak up, the more things will begin to change. But too often, we are too silent. And so I want to encourage you, don't wait till they knock on your door or your next door neighbor's door, but you can act and you can support and you could help change laws right now, today. So I'm gonna, the Cox family, please.
I have been so in tune with making sure that this officer is charged with the murder of Fred Cox. We have not started to implement a law or change anything. However, the one thing that I would like to see or change is the fact that when investigating a case, the officers can come dressed in normal clothing. I would like to see them have to wear a uniform as they should, and have body cameras on the entire services of the funeral. And I will also say, piggybacking on him saying something about the dads that's not active. About 3 days after the district attorney announced that she was not gonna charge murderer Michael Shane Hill with the death of Frederick Rodriguez Smith Cox, my son's dad had a heart attack and died. He called me and stated that I was the stronger of the two. And he couldn't take it. His heart couldn't take it. And 30 minutes after that, I was getting a call that his dad had also passed away. So sometimes because the father is not seen, does not mean the father was not present or is not present, because I feel his presence now. So, thank you.
Well, I live in Virginia Beach. Well, I moved from Virginia Beach. I'm a resident of Virginia Beach for the past 28 years, where I raised my son and daughter in the household. My wife for 30 years as well, who passed away in 2018. My son was a terrific young man. He was a scholar. He was an athlete. He was a community organizer. He was an entrepreneur. He was a counselor to his friends. He was a go-to person in the community. We have been grieving, because it just happened last March, but we have been working. I started a foundation. I'm a co-founder of the foundation, the Donovon Wayne Lynch Foundation for Social and Economic Justice. We have to have economic justice as well as social justice. Every family that's been affected needs to be compensated. What we can do is leverage our consumer spending. We want to now partner with socially responsible businesses and corporations to return a percentage back to our communities by zip codes. It's called the Zone Improvement Plan. That's what zip code stands for. We want our zones to improve. So we need to leverage our consumer spending, first of all. Second of all, we need to vote. We need to register and then vote because we need to be on the forefront of things instead of the back end of things when they occur. But you have to do that by voicing your civil rights by voting. Thirdly, all our sons and daughters' civil rights were violated. In my case, it's my son's Second Amendment. He was a licensed, registered gun owner for his business, which was a security company that him and his friends from college started. My son was 6'4", 300 pounds. He was light on his feet, and he was agile and mobile. But he was smart. His company was called Think First, and that's what the officer did not do in his case. He was identified not by the police. He was identified by his stature, and he was shot and killed. And he was treated inhumanely. He was not transported to the hospital until 9 o'clock the next morning. And this happened before midnight. My son actually died 14 minutes after he was shot. What we have done in Virginia Beach is we have, there's a law in Virginia where you can implement independent law enforcement review boards, where they will analyze and look at all complaints by citizens, especially Black and brown citizens, to see exactly what occurred. They have subpoena power, they're fully funded, and they can recommend disciplinary actions. This is something that can be implemented throughout the country. Just by a show of hands, raise your hand if you are not from New York. Okay? This can go all over the country with this people that we have in this room right now. All we need to do is organize, galvanize, and mobilize. So that's one thing that we're proud of in the city of Virginia Beach, because before then, it was not happening. One thing about the law also, it's an option for them to implement it. So the pressure was applied after my son was killed. Everything that they've did since my son was murdered in Virginia Beach has been to correct the problem that existed before.
I want to talk about just what you're talking about implementing for just a few minutes, because it's so important when we implement these kind of committees that we make sure that that the officers are not the ones who are on the committees who has retired from the force. Because what that does is that still puts that prejudice in the view of the committee, because they're still swayed to think with the same mindset of blue, code blue, right? And so one of the things that we found out with having citizens review boards and those type of committees, that there was officers who had retired who were trying to be on the committee, and because they were on the committee, they prejudiced the other committee members. And so we have to make sure, again, that we're at the table, the communities at the table, and not just those who have retired from the force. Secondly, I think you was talking about, now it kind of slipped my mind. You was talking about the way the system is set up. When we look at the system, all of us here have our own experiences. But as we continue to share with one another the very ideas of changing the laws and stuff that are happening in Virginia, can happen in California, can happen in Minnesota, can happen in Chicago, can happen in Texas. But again, we have to galvanize. We have to come together and make sure that we are standing as one, because our policing system know, our court system know that we'll get out there and we will protest for a few weeks, and then the 5,000 will turn into 2,000 and turn into 1,000, and then it'll be 10 left. And so we have to understand that we have to continue to fight, even though it may seem that they're listening or they're not listening. And so I want to ask a question again to each of you. And the question is, if you can honor your child by leaving or creating something for the next generation, what would it be? This was one of the questions from the audience earlier. And so I wanted to pose that question because it's important to not only talk about the laws, but who was your child? We want to humanize them. So what legacy would you leave for Philando? What legacy are you leaving behind?
The legacy that is left behind from Philando is the Philando Castile Relief Foundation. We help families that suffer a loss through gun violence. We provide a stipend. We help reduce the negative lunch balances within our communities. We offer resources wherever there's needed. There is a $5,000 scholarship at the high school that he graduated from. And at this point, it has been endowed. That means that $5,000 scholarship will go on when we're not here anymore. And we have the Philando Castile Peace Garden. It's right at the spot where Philando took his last breath, the spot where he was denied his right to live. It was created by the community. They started bringing things. So God led me to create a bench, and it's got beautiful Tenicka symbols like God is love, excellence, different wordings, the signs. They have several different meanings, but they have this spiritual aspect about it because my son is still alive. He's here right now. And I just love him so much. And we have created some things that outlive us in his honor. And, as far as what you was talking about, the council, and then you piggybacked off of it saying that it consists of retired police officers or someone that's within that group, where it'll make it difficult anyway. There's these rich people that's on the board and the ex-police on the board, a lawyer that's his friend that's married to her daughter and all this kind of stuff. So it's very, very difficult to do anything, but I'm gonna let her speak. But, yeah.
So we started a scholarship at Sandy's College back here a few years ago. That's endowed as well. So that's at Prairie View College where she went. And back here last year, we started a scholarship at her high school, which last year we was able to bless one person monetarily to go to college. And by the grace of God and the supporters and the wristbands and these lapel pins that I have on, we was able to bless 2 kids this semester that just passed. So we're working with the kids because that's what Sandy liked to do. She was very, very passionate about our youth, and she really wanted them to have their own voice and be able to speak unapologetically. So that's the goal, to continue to make sure that we can help them monetarily some type of way. Because what people feel like is may really matter to someone going forward. So we're going to continue to do that. And any proceeds that we make, we donate it to the school. And that's what we're going to do for the moment. Also, we're going to try to bring the Sandra Bland Act to Chicago. Although she was killed in Texas, she was from Chicago. So it's a lot of people that have been found in Chicago deceased as well. So we're going to try to bring the right act to Chicago with the necessary components in there.
So ideally, if there could be something that I could build for his legacy, I think I would start a home for young men. So many of them are lost and wandering and end up in these situations that they never get out of. And Tony, he was lost for a long time, and but before he passed, he had told me, he had watched me working pregnant as they come. And he told me, like, I'm watching you do this, and I believe in myself. And I would like other young men to get that chance to feel like they have somebody that loves them, somebody that cares about what happens to them, and that you can turn it around, ideally. You know, my sister got a huge settlement after my nephew died, but she went crazy. This is the real effects of what you see happens to family. You know, nobody saw any of that money. There was never a foundation. There was never a scholarship set up. There was never anything that I can say carried his legacy on. But if I could have it my way, I would make sure that would never happen to anybody else. No little boys. Y'all need to know, like, this. My sister went crazy, and she has not come back, and she probably won't ever come back. Excuse me, sorry.
I want to say something really fast because you said that your sister went crazy.
Yes, ma'am.
My other sister said that her husband or her son's father passed away a few days after. And I want the audience to know that grief is real.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. It is.
It's real. It's something that's carried internal that often manifests itself on the outside in different ways. And I'll never forget, we always talk about PTSD for military folks, and we don't really talk about it. We're talking about it more for civilians now. We're talking about it more for those who have witnessed types of acts. But I want you to know that it's real. Yes. When my son was killed, I watched his friends deal with them seeing their brother killed by the police. And I watched them how easy it is to self-destruct yourself because of what you're housing internally. Yes. And so I just want to say that grief is real. Yes. And it's okay to be angry. Yes. It's okay to yell. Yes. It's okay to cry. It's okay to jump up and down. But what we say is we don't want you to manifest yourself by hurting yourself when you are dealing with grief. Yes. We say that there are psychiatrists available. Yes. We say that there are counselors available. There are pastors available. Yes. And there are friends available who will listen to you as you share what you're going through, the hurt, the pain, the sadness that you may be feeling. And so we want the audience, to make sure that you look at the families who have been on the panels today. Hug them. Let them know you support them. Let you know that you love them and that you're there for them. Some of the panelists are new at losing a loved one, and they need all the support that they can get. I heard my sister say on the first panel, send them a plate, take them some food, be there, send them a card, give them a call, be there and let them know that you love them, that you're there for them, that you support them. To the Cox family, your turn, go ahead.
Thank you. We have started the FCLM Foundation, Fred Cox Life Matters Foundation. And this is the president of our foundation who does everything. With Fred, he was very giving. He was a people person. And 2 weeks, maybe a week and a half before he was brutally murdered, my cousin, who is a pastor, had contacted us and said that one of his church members' house had burned down. And I called Fred and told him, and he came home quicker than he ever have whenever I tell him to come home. And he said, Ma, could you find out what size the boys wear? So lo and behold, one of the family members, the little boys, were the exact same size as Fred. So as I'm standing in his room telling him, Fred commits to taking his clothes out his closet. And I said, Fred, what are you gonna wear if you giving away all your clothes? He said, Mama, I'm blessed. I can worry about that later. And he took about 90% of his clothes out of his closet and bagged them up and had me to call my cousin to come pick it up for the victim. So what we do in our foundation is we give back to the community. We do a lot of clothing giveaways. We just had a big back to school drive where we gave out book bags. We had someone there to spray paint the kids' names on their book bags and feed them and everything. But yeah, we gave out free haircuts and free hairstyles. So that's what we do with Fred's Foundation. We give back. Any proceeds that we make sure that a child is clothed or fed, and now we're working on a scholarship in his honor.
If I could create anything in my brother's honor, it would be a community center for youth. And we grew up very blessed. Our parents made sure that we had everything we needed and wanted. But they were very big on giving back. When we didn't need the things anymore, whether it was new, if we weren't using it, our mom would bag it up and give it away to somebody that needed. And it was on Mama, I like that. Well, even if you do like it, they need it and you like it. So we grew up very, giving. And we carry that, my brother carried that with him up until the day that he was killed, and I still carry that with me now. And I think I would create this center for kids to come, all ages, where they would get help with their homework, where they would have a chance to be creative, have a creative outlet, where they would come and get clothes and shoes, anything that they needed. Because in our community, it's a lot of times we need things and don't know where to get them from, but I would want this center to be a place where people know that they can come and get it, because that's the type of person my brother was. If he had it, you had it, we had it. So that's why I would create that community center.
Like I said previously, I've started, along with my brother, the Donovon Wayne Lynch Foundation for Social and Economic Justice. Our mission is to reimagine those systems and structures that are no longer working in our communities. So we've launched a Reimagine America campaign where we are looking for ideas from the community to improve, eliminate, or build better structures in our community. Another thing that I've created during the foundation, we have a youth orchestra. Because when I think of my son, I think of a symphony. He played all the instruments magnificently. So I've started the Donovon Wayne Lynch Youth Orchestra for kids ages 12 to 17. And once they graduate from high school, they'll receive a scholarship to college. Thank you.
So one of the things my sister talked about is the education, the economic status, the housing, all of that when we talk about defunding the police. So the foundation, the Oscar Grant Foundation, was created to bridge the gap between our community and law enforcement. And so one of the ways that we work to do that is we know that education is so important, right? And so we offer scholarships and school supply drives, but we also offer we have an AAU basketball team where we have the students come together and learn building relationship skills so that they know how to deal with one another, and that if they have any encounters as they get older with police, they're learning those things too. And so I want to go to the audience to see if anyone from the audience may have any questions. If you do, please, I think they had given out pens and papers to ask the questions, or if not, you can raise your hand and we will call on you. Is there anyone that has any questions?
Don't be shy.
So, since there is no one that has any questions, I want to encourage you today to not leave this place the same way that you came, but be committed to assist the families who have lost loved ones by asking what you can do for them. How can you help them? Look at their foundations, get their website, email addresses, and donate to the foundations, or donate your time. Donate your funds. Donate food. Donate your experience, your knowledge, because it is necessary for us to work together to change our system. And I'll close with this. When we think of our body, we have all types of members in our body. Our hands cannot do what our feet do. Our eyes cannot do what our ears do. But if each one of us will play a part in the body, we could change the society that we're living in. And so when we think about that, when we think about what part of the body we are, maybe I'm the hand. And so I might not be at the table when you're sitting with the lawmakers, but I might be out in the street asking people to sign the petition to change the laws. And so we need you. We need the allies. We need the accomplishers. Yeah. We need you to act now and not wait until something happens to you, your family, or your neighbor's family. And so if we're all created equal, this is the time to stand up and support each other as we go forward in our journeys, seeking to change the system, seeking to get liberty to be balanced instead of imbalanced, seeking to change this world where it says that all people are created equal to mean just what it says. And each one of you can help and take part in that today. Thank you. This concludes our panel session for today. Thank you.
You can go to my website. It's DonovanWayneLynchFoundation.org. You'll see all the things that we're doing. Thank you.
If you need to know about Tony Robinson, you can go to 2 different places, the Social Justice Center in Madison, Wisconsin, or you can go to inpursuitofjustice.net. You'll get all the information and what we're doing. You can donate there if you want as well. But you'll be able, it's also linked to the petition, so you can see what we're doing.
I'm gonna throw mine in there too. You can go to the Philando Castile Relief Foundation. His name is right there. The Philando Castile Relief Foundation, and donations and all the things that we've done within the last 6 years. We've donated, I want to say, $400,000 to our food district.
Let me say one more thing. You see all the phone booths and the murals. And I'm sure that as you walked in the door and you listened to some of the messages, that it touched your heart, that you came into a space where healing and togetherness and love and even pain was in this room. And so I don't want you to just leave this room today just saying, oh, wow, I was in a great space. But I really want you to go out and share what your experience in this space was. Because I don't know about Catherine, but I told her when we talked on a conference call one time, I said, this needs to be not just here in New York, but it needs to go across the United States. Because when it goes across the United States, others will see that all these lives here mattered, and so many more lives matter. And so until we come to that, we say Black Lives Matter, but until we come to the fact where everyone's lives matters the same, people, we will continue to say Black and brown lives matter until our judicial systems change. So tell everyone, share what you received in this space today and on last night if you came. Share that with others and ask them to not only donate to these foundations, but ask them to donate to the Worthless Studio Foundation so that we can move these phone booths to another state. We need donations to do this, and we need your help in the from the community to make sure that it doesn't stop here, but that it's propelled all over the states. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Reverend Wanda. Thank you, the families.
Thank you.
We have a newspaper in the back that has links to all the foundations for the families and some more information. Please stick around. Check out the phone booths. The family room in the back also has a lot of things from the loved ones we're celebrating. I also want to thank Terrence here, George Floyd's brother, for being in attendance today. All the other families that are in attendance here that are part of the earlier panel, people that came out with the families from various places. I also want to recognize Andrew Coles, who's here. Raise your hand, Andrew. Andrew helped produce a couple of the films that are playing in the screening room, and he also was a producer on the film Queen and Slim. So really grateful for him to be here too with us. So stick around, hang out, talk, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.